I was pregnant with Jessica in 1999, and Jessica was born, it was an okay pregnancy, and Jessica was born on the 2nd of April, 20 minutes out of the April Fool's Day. And she wasn't right from the beginning. She fitted on and off all day for the first 20 hours. But the midwives in the hospital we were in didn't believe, and they told me that newborn babies don't have fits. But I knew something was wrong, but I was on morphine from an emergency caesarean. So I just took their word for it. And finally, a friend of mine who was a midwife came on duty, and she came in to see me and said, was everything okay? And I said, I wasn't sure, I didn't think so. And Jessica had a fit while my friend was there. So they took her away and they tested her blood sugar levels, and it was 0.3. I think they did that in front of me, actually, the first one. And they thought their machine had broken. And of course, I don't know what 0.3 meant. I didn't even know really what blood sugar levels meant. And apparently they tried 3 machines, and they all 3 said 0.3 millimole. What I know now, I'm amazed she's still alive, actually. They then ran with her, a newborn baby, and put her on a dextrose drip. And we stayed in the local hospital for 5 days. They finally admitted defeat and ran Great Ormond Street. And Great Ormond Street said, yep, we know what this could be, bring her up. So we then lived in Great Ormond Street for 3 months. Complete shock to the system. We lived in our little bubble in our world up there. I knew nothing what was going on in the outside world. My mum used to travel hours to come and see me after work every day, and we would just be in our little cubicle. Jessica had tubes running from everywhere. She had, in that period of time, she had 7 general anaesthetics with major operations. They tried her on all the medication that was available then. There was only 2 different medications available, diazoxide and octreotide. Neither worked. They couldn't get her off the dextrose drip at all. So finally we were told that she would have to have 60% of her pancreas removed. So they'd tested beforehand. There was an old way of testing that they don't use anymore to see what type of HI she had, whether it was diffuse or focal. And they came back and said she was multifocal. So they thought that if they took 60% of her pancreas, then she'd be okay afterwards. So she had the major operation. They took 60% of her pancreas, and it didn't work. She was back on the dextrose drip pretty immediately. Once they'd looked at the pancreas that they removed, they said it was, at the time, it was the worst case of diffuse, which means the whole of the pancreas is rotten, they'd ever seen. So they scheduled her for another operation, and she had the rest of her pancreas removed, bar about 2 or 3%, which is sort of stuck to the bile duct. So it's like a bit like scraping ink off paper. So they left that bit. And then a week later, she had to have a bile duct bypass because her bile duct had got blocked during the surgeries. So she had another operation. So they went into the same scar 3 times. And a week after that, she had her first insulin injection. Before all of those operations, she had to have a Hickman line put in, and they found a blood clot hanging off the end of the Hickman line. And she used to have an echo, which is a scan on her heart, daily to see what was happening with this blood clot. So her first ever surgery for her pancreas removal was postponed quite a few times because they couldn't do that surgery until they knew where this blood clot had gone. And I used to watch this blood clot on the screens with the echograms, watching this blood clot go in and out of one of her heart chambers. And they said that if it had come off the end of the Hickman line, she would have died. So they had to make the decision of what to do, and they spoke to me about open heart surgery to pull it out that way, or they talked to me about having the Hickman line removed, and the blood clot may well have then dropped off the Hickman line inside her, and again it could have blocked the heart and she could have died. So what would normally have been a 15-minute operation to get the Hickman line out was a 4-hour operation, which was terrifying. So all in all, she had 7 general anaesthetics. We left hospital with Jessica, who was diabetic. She's not quite type 1 diabetic. She's not type 2 diabetic. We call it type 3 or type 4, whatever number you want to put to it. She's treated like a type 1 diabetic, but with bells on. So she has added extras. There are added extra complications when she hypos sometimes. We've just swapped one medical condition for another medical condition. So she's 15 years old now, and I still test her blood sugars overnight. She has no backup in her body to help her come out of a hypo or to slow down a hypo. She has the latest technology. We're really lucky that we've been given funding for that, because lots of people with diabetes aren't. So she has an insulin pump, and she has continuous glucose monitor, which helps us to see what her blood sugars are. She tests her blood sugars maybe 10 to 15 times in a 24-hour period. I test her blood sugars overnight, because you just never know what's going to happen. Diabetes doesn't go to sleep, comes with us everywhere. She's more grown up than any of her friends her age, and I think that's because of everything she's had to go through. It's quite a hard life for a parent. It's my life, and my life's fine, but I am worn out. I'm knackered most of the time, hence the bags under the eyes. But I wouldn't swap my life, actually. I think Jessica having this condition has made her the person she is today, and she's lovely, she's kind and generous and will help anybody, but it's also changed me and my personality, and I didn't know that I was good at what I do now, and I like helping people who also have congenital hyperinsulinism and diabetes. If Jessica had been given the chance to try Sirolimus when she was born, then there's a possibility she could have kept her pancreas. There is then a possibility that maybe one day she could have grown out of congenital hyperinsulinism, and maybe one day not had to test her blood sugars every 10 to 15 times a day. There's just a chance that our life would have been very, very different. There's a chance that she would be able to do things on the spur of the moment and not have to pre-plan everything. There's a chance that I might sleep at night, and I may well have been able to go back to work full-time as the office manager that I was at the time, rather than working from home. We would have had a completely different life if Sirolimus had been around, and it could have helped Jessica not become diabetic, which would have been a very much different life. So if people donate to this campaign to look more into Sirolimus, the chance for other families to not go down the diabetic route, or not have to deal with the extra hair and everything from having diazoxide, it would just make such a massive, massive difference. Life would be so much easier to have lived if Jessica had been on a drug that didn't need as much monitoring as being on insulin does. And if we can raise the funds so that we know what Sirolimus does more, it will help other children and other babies and other families to lead more of a normal life like their friends.